Hi everyone, Sebastien Richard tonight, live on this Monday night for the Thriving on Purpose, I wouldn't say broadcast. Tonight is a top nugget. It was a while since I'd done a top nugget, and I thought, what better night than tonight to share this, because I really got a top nugget to share with you guys tonight. And I know the title would probably get your attention, like, whoa, Sebastian's not a Christian anymore? Well, it's true. It really is. And I'm going to explain to you why. A few years back, I was listening to a teaching by Dr. Miles Monroe, and he was talking about the kingdom, as was his habit, because it was the main thing he taught. And he was explaining why he didn't like the word Christian. And he was explaining, but he didn't go in detail, but he said basically that it was a pejorative term used by the heathen, by the pagans, in the days when the church was just beginning, that was used to define them. Now, he didn't go into details. And today I was scrolling on Facebook, and I fell on a post that a friend shared, and I thought, wow, this is really insightful. So I'm going to share it with you guys tonight. It's about the word Christian. So bear with me. I took some notes, as I usually do, and I'm going to share with you what was shared about the term Christian. So the word is mentioned in the New Testament only 3 times. And one of those times, it's mentioned in 1 Peter 4:16, where we read, "Yet if any man suffer as a Christian, let him not be ashamed, but let him glorify God on this behalf." Now, if you read the text in a Bible, in a printed Bible, the words, "if any man suffer," these words were added later. In other words, they do not exist in the original Greek text. Now, you're probably going to say, well, yeah, sometimes they need to add some words to make the text make sense. And yet, in this particular passage of Scripture, the words were added, but they were added probably by the translators to make sense, but they don't really make sense. And if you take them out, it actually makes more sense. But here's where I'm going with this. So the text should read, "Yet, if as Christians, do not be ashamed." Or other versions would say, "If, however, as Christians, do not be ashamed." So the implication is, as I mentioned earlier when I began, it was a pejorative term. It was a term that insulted believers at the time when they were called Christians. But why was that? So this is what we're going to look at. So in Acts 11:26, Acts 11:26 is one of those other instances where we see the word Christian. It says the disciples were first called Christians at Antioch. So the disciples were first called Christians at Antioch. So the oldest and best codex in existence is Codex Sinaiticus, or Codex A. A codex is an ancient manuscript in the original languages. Although it's not the original, it's a very good original text with the original languages. So in Codex Sinaiticus, the Greek word for Christians is Christianoi with an E, okay? And not Christianoi with an I. And so they use the E instead of the I in all 3 instances. Remember, I said that the word Christian is found only 3 times in the New Testament. So in all 3 instances in the Codex Sinaiticus, it is in the Greek written with an E, Christianoi, and not with an I, Christianoi. And this makes a world of difference. Here's where I'm going with this. It makes a world of difference. So the followers, so rather than followers of the anointed one, Christos, they were, so the word Christian, as opposed to the word Christian, see, the word Christian would have meant followers of the anointed one. But the word Christian with an E would mean, it would have a different sense. It would mean more like the goody-goody bunch, or members of the household of goody-goody. And I know this sounds weird, but in the Greek, Christos with an E, as it is from the original text, often means good or moral. Okay, so when they were called Christians with an E instead of Christian with an I, they were basically called by unbelievers, oh, this is the bunch of goody-goodies. This is the bunch of goody two-shoes. And it's funny because I always kind of felt that way without knowing all about the Greek and all about the wording and the translations and the lost in translation stuff. I always kind of felt in my heart that the word Christian kind of had that sense in a way. I always felt it kind of had that sense. So the word, the way it was originally meant was with an E and not with an I. So not followers of the anointed one, but rather those of the house of goody-goody or the goody two-shoes. So it was meant by the Romans, by the people at large, by the unbelievers, as a term to kind of insult believers, kind of make them feel like a bunch of goody-goodies. And if you've been listening to the Thriving on Purpose broadcast, you know how I feel about this. I've been teaching this for a long time, that Christians, believers, and like I said, I don't like using the word Christians anymore. I'm going to get to that. But I always felt like we are called to be good. We're not called to be nice. And I believe that if we are genuinely good, if we do genuinely good, people will respect us. But if we're too nice, they will disrespect us. Now, let me just finish with where I was going with this. So the culture at the time, they looked at the followers of the way, because the Christians at the time, the disciples, the believers, they called themselves followers of the way. And that I think that is very deep. I like that. See, Jesus called himself the way, the truth, and the life. So when believers call themselves followers of the way, it had bearing, it had strength. I think that meant something. So those who looked at the followers of the way, those who looked at believers at the time, they called them the bunch of do-gooders or goody-goodies or goody two-shoes, to kind of insult them, because, you know, Christians were advocates of nonviolence. They were pushed around. They would, you know, give the other cheek, and they were always going out of their way to do good. So the people were trying to insult them and make them feel silly or stupid for doing good. You catch my drift? So in the passage, let's get back to 1 Peter chapter 4. 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 16, which says, "Yet if any man suffer as a Christian, let him not be ashamed, but let him glorify God on this behalf." This is powerful. It takes a whole new meaning now. So what Peter is saying is, if any man is treated or called a goody-goody or a goody two-shoes, let him not be ashamed, but let him glorify God on this behalf. So the believers back then, they fully understood and they knew that the term Christian, goody-goody, goody two-shoes, was an insult. It was pejorative. It was meant to demean them, to make them feel like crap. Okay? But the funny thing is, today and hundreds of years later, what ended up happening is we began calling ourselves Christians, which means goody-goodies or goody two-shoes. So that's just kind of sad when you think about it, when you understand the whole origin of the word and what it used to mean to believers back then. The fact that we took that word and we're running with it today left and right, it's kind of sad, because it doesn't mean followers of the anointed one in the ancient Greek. When you understand the whole language, and we did a language study here, it wasn't exhaustive, but it was enough to prove and to understand that the term meant something pejorative and not something positive. This is why I titled this broadcast, "Why I'm Not a Christian Anymore." So what am I? Well, I'm a follower of the way. I'm a kingdom citizen. I'm a believer. I like the term believer. I really like it. I use it a lot. And I try as much as possible not to use the term Christian anymore. Sometimes I use it because I understand that culturally people understand it when I use it. So when I do my broadcast, sometimes I'm going to use the term Christian, but I kind of cringe a little bit on the inside every time I use it, just to be honest. So when people ask me what I am, I try not to use the term Christian anymore, although I know they understand it that way. I prefer saying I'm a believer, I'm a kingdom citizen, I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. That's what I am. That's what you are. You're not a goody-goody, okay? You're not from the house of goody-goody. You're from the house of Yahweh. You're from the house of Jesus Christ. You have been redeemed. You're a kingdom citizen. There's power behind that. So let's be proud of who we are, and it's good to understand also what these terms mean. And I hope that this top nugget blessed you. I hope you're going to share it with others, because I felt it was quite insightful when I read it. When I read that post, I was like, oh yeah, I got to share that with the folks listening to us. And by the way, speaking of listening to us, make sure you join us this Wednesday night at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time as we continue our Kingdom Leadership series. If I'm not mistaken, this week we're going to be talking about joy. So how joy is important in the life of a leader, in the life of a kingdom leader. So make sure you join us on Wednesday. And I'm just going to leave you with that. Share this broadcast, make it known, and help people get blessed with the knowledge that being a believer is so much better than being a Christian.